I'll go ahead and call the Red Rock Corridor Commission meeting to order for Monday, September 30th, and we will start with introductions. Councilmember Taylor, maybe you can start.
Marvin Taylor, I'm on the City Council in Newport, do a lot of land use work, and I obviously on this committee as well.
Sounds good. I am Washington County Commissioner Carla Bigham, Chair of this commission, and represent South Washington County.
Good afternoon, Mai Chong Zhang, Ramsey County Commissioner. I represent District 6, which is most of the east side of St. Paul.
Good afternoon, I'm Dave Pemble, City of Hastings.
Good afternoon, I'm Monique Garza, City Council Member for Cottage Grove.
Good afternoon, I'm Andrea Rame. I'm the project manager at Washington County.
And then we do have staff and others that will be presenting in the audience, and they can introduce themselves at that time. If you would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next on the agenda are comments from the public. I don't see any members of the public here to comment, so we'll move on. The first item for approval is approval of the agenda. If there are no changes, I would seek a motion to approve today's agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The next item is the approval of the January minutes from this commission's meeting. If there are no edits, changes, or corrections, I would entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for January.
Sounds good. Is there a second? Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now for the big ticket item of today is Metro Transit is here to talk about some very exciting news from Metro Transit's Network Now. And before that, we do have a special guest today. And we're gonna, I think I'm on this one. But anyway, we're gonna have our Met Council member who represents South Washington County and really has been instrumental in helping us get conversations going again about getting additional lines and new lines to this area, which has been very important for economic development, for workforce issues, for housing, and getting services. So we just really appreciate her advocacy, and I invited her today because this is a big deal. Now, not signed, sealed, and delivered, we know that. It's a public comment, and there'll probably be some changes. And we want the public to weigh in on what Mr. Harrington will be saying in a moment. But I would like our council member Sue Vento to come and say a couple words to the commission. This is her first time being able to come and visit with us, so I just wanted to introduce her. So thank you, Sue, for being here today.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. It's a privilege to be here with you all. I haven't had a chance to meet you yet, Councilmember Garza, but I have had a chance to meet with your mayor and with Jennifer. So actually, we've met several times actually. But anyway, thank you. I come here anxious to hear the presentation, but more importantly, to listen to what you folks have to say about it, what our strengths are, where additional work will be needed down the line. The Network Now is an exciting project. Our goal is to do what we can to broaden transportation options, particularly in the suburbs and the outer ring. And I'm new to this district, well, not quite new, I'm starting to get a little dust on me, but a year and a half ago, our districts were realigned due to the census, and so prior to that, I represented a tiny portion of Washington County, a tiny portion of Anoka County, and then the eastern portion of Ramsey County. I currently have Southern Washington County, as Commissioner Bigham said. I have eastern Dakota County, and then I have a little tiny sliver of Ramsey County. people call that kind of districting gerrymandering. I just call it ventomandering, but bad joke. Anyway, we had been appointed at the beginning of 2023, and rather than go through another appointment process, the decision was made to try and take those council members and work the districts around them. So that's why it may seem that my district is goofy, and it is, but it's working for me, and I love working with townships and cities and counties. It's been great. With regard to Network Now, the goal is to try and help meet all of the needs that Commissioner Bingham noted. Quality of life is really important, and whether it's from a professional standpoint or personal standpoint, it's vital. And transit has more and more become a part of that, and we've definitely learned that since COVID. So thanks for the invitation to be here. I'm happy to come back at any time. I'm going to have to leave a little bit early tonight, but I will definitely stay for this agenda item. And don't ever hesitate to reach out to me. We welcome your comment on this, and we also welcome your comment on the 2050 plan. We've got about a week to go for public comment on that, and public comments really make a difference. And if you have public comments that you or your municipalities are sending in, please copy them to me and or to your council members so that we know what's being said from the district we represent. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. And the counties most likely will be approving our comments to the 2050 plan tomorrow. And then I believe we will have comments on the Metro Transit Network Now as well. So without further ado, Mr. Harrington, if you want to come up and begin your presentation.
Great, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. I'm Adam Harrington. I'm the Director of Service Development at Metro Transit, and our department does the planning and scheduling for our transit network across the region. So I don't know if you can see the presentation.
Unplugging it, plugging it back in.
Here we go.
And I'll
There we are.
There we
hit
Okay.
these, so just click. Good, next slide.
Oops,
Yeah.
I didn't. Okay. I'm going to go through some of the introductory slides kind of quickly. This first slide just talks about what's changed over the past few years, which I think is summarized well also in the Red Rock Corridor Plan vision. As you know, the travel market has changed substantially. We've had a lot of shifts in workforce over the past few years, and we're now in the upswing of being able to hire and doing a good job, I think, of growing. And of course, we never grow as fast as we want to, but we're moving in the right direction. And this is a prime opportunity for us between new sales tax funding and our growing workforce to really tackle some of the ideas that we've had and we've heard from our stakeholders and customers over the past couple of years. So Network Now is a vision really aimed at what we can change and improve between now and the end of 2027. We wanted it to be a time frame that was implementable and something that we can sort out and implement as much as we can, and what we can't get done based on workforce, we can push that out into the future as well. But essentially, we're doing two major things. One is recognizing the travel pattern changes. We'll be discontinuing a number of express routes across the region. You'll see a map of what that looks like. But we're also implementing a lot of new service, frequency span, new route coverage, and micro transit as well. With a lot of information on the background of how we came to developing this plan, we evaluated the performance of all of our service, whether it was suspended or not. It's informed by the policy that we've been operating under at the Met Council and the performance of our service. And we did a significant engagement effort in 2023 to hear from our customers on what they would like to see across our network. And I always point out this line graph on the lower side of the chart here, which represents the pattern of ridership across the day. So on the left hand is early in the morning, and on the right hand is late at night. And you can see the gray line was 2019, really peaked out in the AM and PM rush hour, and now that's significantly different. But we are in a growing mode for ridership as well, so we've got some good opportunity ahead. The principles that we're designing our plan around, again, are along those policy elements. And so we're adapting to the changes, we're implementing metro lines, we're adjusting to travel patterns, providing new coverage and new access. So the draft concept plan overall, when you look at the entire region, is a 35% increase of service across the region. It varies by area, but it's a significant improvement over what we have out there today. I mentioned the micro transit service ideas that we'll be pursuing, as well as changes in the commuter express market. This map represents some of the areas of improvement where we're adding new service and new segments around the region. 65 routes have service improvements, frequency. We know that frequency drives attractiveness, as well as that connectivity and coverage. So on this map, you can see the shaded areas in light green are the future microzones. Some of them are not defined, they just have an oval, but as we approach developing those areas will be more defined, more similar to what you see in Woodbury and Roseville, and working with our local cities and partners to better define those zones as we move forward. Frequency improvements on those core urban locals, a lot of new investment there in connecting with our ABRT and transitways. And a little bit more about the micro project expansion. I mentioned Rosedale, Roseville, and Woodbury. Those are planned to open by the end of this year. And so those will be our first suburban area micro zones. We've got 6 others beyond that that are shown in the circles here, beyond North Minneapolis. So it's a new service for us, and we're partnering with our council partners at Metropolitan Transportation Services to help deliver that. And this is the difference between micro transit and Transit Link, which already does serve this part of the region, is that this is a same-day app-enabled reservation system where we can deliver that trip within 20 minutes or so, whereas with Transit Link, it's a reservation where you call a call center and you can reserve a trip within 1 to 4 days. We have a number of express route networks. Because of the big change in how people go to work in the office in the downtown areas in particular with remote work, we're focusing on the key freeway corridors and where we provide service and anchoring on those larger park and rides like Cottage Grove, and focusing on how we can improve service there and provide some midday service as well for a little bit more flexibility. And that framework will stand above a number of routes that are recommended for discontinuation that have been suspended since March 2020, of which there are 53. So I just covered that. This is the change in commuter market. As you can see, the suspended routes on top of the ones that we're focusing on, where those discontinued routes are along with the adjacent facilities. And then overall, the big picture here is the 35% change. So the pre-pandemic bar on the bottom represents the service hours that were operated in 2019 before the pandemic, with the blue being the local service, orange being commuter express, red being commuter express, orange being BRT and light rail and micro service. You can see the middle is where we are now, or in 2023. We're actually a little bit more than this data snap, but the concept plan is a 35% increase when you add up all those categories together. So the big growth areas are in BRT and micro and light rail. We did a lot of analysis of the whole network overall to see how it benefits people. This is just a snapshot of high frequency service, and you can see that the different groups fare very well in all the categories here. The red line is the concept plan where we add quite a bit more service. All of this service is going to require about 500 more bus operators in the system to cover all of this work. And so right now we're at about 1,200. So we've got a ways to go in terms of hiring, but we're making good progress there. It is still a bit of a tight market, but we're growing as fast as we can at the pace of hiring and training, and that also requires support for not only facility management, but how we maintain our buses and purchasing buses and all of those things that come into play. Okay, so Red Rock Corridor. Looking at Washington County in general, it's a huge change in service hours, and a big part of that is that yellow bar, which is the Gold Line. So a lot of service goes into Gold Line that's opening next March, and so we're excited about that and what kind of connections we can make. There's 4 new routes that are part of this, the Route 221, which is Oakdale, 301, which is the Cottage Grove to Woodbury. The 354 is Woodbury Newport Airport, and then a number of other elements where we're improving frequency. I won't spend too much time describing them because they are on a map coming up. So here's the map. You can see where those routes go. The blue lines are the new ones, and we think that that does a good job of reflecting what we've seen in the Red Rock Corridor vision of making that connection along the 494 corridor and also making the connection between Cottage Grove and Woodbury. And again, these are concepts. These are ones that we pulled together and fit them into the puzzle pieces, and we really appreciate comments on what people would like to see. And again, this is all in the backdrop of how we grow the entire system and our hiring trends that we have moving forward. So let's see if I'll come back to that slide. Network Now timeline. This shows we're about halfway through. This is the public engagement period. We're taking official comments through November 15th. All the while we're taking comments, we're thinking about how we can modify this plan. We'll be modifying the plan and going to Met Council in early 2025 for their approval. And again, it's a vision. A lot can change year to year. We're hoping that we can do much, if not all of this, by the end of 2027. But things change as we go along the way, so there may be some additional tweaks as we go. More information on the engagement process. We've got an online comment form on our website, which is metrotransit.org/networknow. We have an official public hearing on the 29th, but just to remind people, we'll take all comments at all venues in all ways and treat them the same. People don't need to come and attend the public hearing, but anything we get via email or phone or comment card or any other meeting are part of how we consider comments through this whole process. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions you may have, and I'll want to also introduce Scott Thompson. He's a senior transit planner who's worked in this area for a while and can answer some detailed questions. With that, I'll stand for questions. Thank you.
Well, I can open it up. I don't know if,
I have a couple of questions.
See if we can
go,
go back.
go ahead,
Thank you
Councilmember.
for your presentation. It was really good. I'm happy to see that we're getting more connections out further, so, especially for Cottage Grove, so I'm really excited for that. My question to you, you mentioned the park and rides, and we really are underutilizing our park and rides, especially in Cottage Grove and the one right down the road. So I'm wondering, is there opportunity the same way that we use those park and rides for the State Fair Express? Like right now, we have so many sporting events that are happening. Is there any opportunity to open those up to give us some ways to get connected to the city quicker without having to drive from out this way? Just a thought.
Madam Chair, committee member, yes, that's one of the areas that we kind of are challenged with how to logistically apply, because this isn't the only idea or the only location. And for the state fair, when we carry 300,000 rides in 12 days, it's a pretty clear way we can deliver that service. But if it's a wild hockey game or whatever else may be going on at Excel or US Bank, how we choose how to serve those is a logistical challenge, but it's certainly one that we're aware of, and we think about that all around the region, and how is there a way we can better do that. So I appreciate the comment.
Thank you.
So, real quick, just to respond to that, I was in the Transportation Alliance fly-in and had the opportunity to sit at breakfast with Chair Zelli.
Okay.
And one of my hopes, and this would be more of a Washington County thing, because we also have our own pot of money. I don't like to tell Mr. Harrington that, but the county also has our own pot of money. One of the things that I would like to see with that park and ride is maybe possibly in coming years use that for Vikings games, for home games. One for safe and sober rides. I think that's very important to use, but also to get people to have a good, positive experience with transit. And to let them know that Washington County and Metro Transit is back, and we're reliable, we're safe, so it is on my to-do list as far as, we're right in the process right now, council member, of writing our own transportation plan, because we received a lot of money from the legislature, thankfully. And so that is one of my ideas, and the best planner in the world is in the audience, and that's Lissa Leitner. And she knows that I'm passionate about this item, so I'm with you on this. I think it's a good opportunity.
It
So.
is. And a few weeks ago, we were looking for a way to get down to the Vikings game.
Yeah.
But the reason why I say that is because we used that park and ride for the
Yeah.
state fair.
Yes.
And it was used, it was overflowed use.
Oh, Mr. Harrington knows
For a
that.
long
I can
time.
Yeah,
truly
we've had
see
some
us-
heated discussions over the last 10 years, Mr. Harrington and I have, over this park and ride about the state fair.
Well,
So.
I'm glad we're on the same page, so thank you.
Yep,
I can't
Councilmember
wait to see
Premble.
that.
I would like to know, it's like, I can remember back that originally bus service came before the park and ride was put together, and the buses actually went to Langdon and then went across, because the road used to go over to Washington County 19, and then you could cross over and the bus would go back. And about that same time, the Department of Transportation built a large parking area at 10 and 61, hoping that eventually the bus would come that far for pickups. And with the Highway Department rebuilding 61 in Hastings, right now we got about 35,000 vehicles going each way every day. And if there was access to a bus area, and Met Council way back in the 80s gave the city of Hastings about $800,000 to provide a parking location, because the bus was going to transit all the way to Hastings. But the convenience of getting off and on 61 makes that impossible right now and for the future. Is there any way or any possible plans in the future to use that 10 and 61 location as a turnaround for that whatever 300, 354, whatever the route number was, to give some access for the people in Dakota County and eastern Dakota County?
Madam Chair, committee member, it's an excellent question and one we've done quite a bit of research on. Before 2020, what we found when you looked at the license plate survey of where people are coming from to use all of the facilities, whether it's Fort Snelling, Mall of America, Cottage Grove, Low Raft, and Newport, a lot of those people were going to Fort Snelling if they're going to Minneapolis, and a lot of people are coming to Cottage Grove. And one of the big changes that we've seen is in the commuter market to the downtowns. And that's the biggest challenge that we have now. It's much bigger than it was then. And so when you look at the map of the whole region where we're discontinuing routes, most of those are the longer ones, because if you have a facility that's available and open a little bit further in, it's kind of the downstream effect, where people from Hastings can drive to Cottage Grove and there's 340 spaces there.
But a lot of the time,
Yeah.
that's full.
During the state fair, it's full, yes.
Otherwise, it's not being used right now.
Now it's not being used.
Oh, it's not being used now?
I think we have 30 cars that use it
Okay.
right now. So
I stand
if that
corrected.
happens, and if the market changes, that's something worth exploring again.
And just to add to that, Councilmember, too, again, we're redoing our transportation plan from a county perspective. And one of the items that is being discussed and that I'm pushing for with the city and the industrial park, because again, just for folks' edification, we have Renewal by Anderson. We have help me out with some of the big names out here, but we have the medicinal marijuana growing plant facility down there. We have Hohenstein's coming, we have a lot of businesses down there. So to be able to possibly use that as a hub, for a circulator is my long answer.
In
And
addition to the, I'm sorry, excuse me,
Yep.
Madam. But in addition to that, we have over 400 new single-family homes.
homes
that are
coming down there, yeah.
So with all of that.
Yeah.
The commercial buildings and the homes that are going there, there's definitely a need.
Yeah, but we have American Logistics. We have a lot of big businesses down there that have requested the circulator and everything like that. And also, it's in close proximity to St. Paul Park, which has our food, our food shelf for South Washington County. So we could use that from a county perspective, again, using the county's pot of money, so.
Thank you.
Commissioner, do you have any thoughts or comments that
Nope, that's fine. Thank you.
this commissioner?
I think I may have provided comments already during Purple Line meeting, but I will just reiterate it here too about where McKnight is. That local service had been discontinued, but the need is still there and it's still great. This was just about 2 weeks ago or so where we had a presentation about our WIC eligible households. They were eligible because categorically they were eligible. They had medical assistance as well as kids under the age of 5 in their household. But they were not enrolled in WIC because they, and I'm not sure why, but I can also assume that access is an issue and barrier because they are all the way in the southeast of St. Paul, and this is where Highwood Hills is, and where McKnight is, and it's also been discontinued there. I looked up online to see how long it would take to get to our service center, which is just off of Suburban, where Target is, off of 94 and Suburban. It took over an hour.
One way.
Yeah, and if you are asking for working class people, working class families to try to take time off just to go to an appointment so that they can get a service and be eligible for WIC, like that makes it very difficult and challenging. And that is where we see the red spots of where households that could be in WIC but aren't enrolled in WIC. So I would say that, we have to be thoughtful and mindful about like the populations that we are serving and where that need is. In addition to that, just the northeast corner of McKnight and Larpenteur, we will have 1,000 units of housing there, and that's in St. Paul, the former Hillcrest. So that's also an opportunity where I see like along McKnight there is where we should also be looking to. And then finally, I have a question about how we determine micro transit zones.
Go ahead.
Madam Chair, Commissioner, great questions. I'm happy to talk about both of these things. On the microzone, right now, we have designed these 8 additional zones that are really focused on transit centers and where there'll be metro lines as our first foray into really expanding that in this 8 region-wide. That's not to say no, never, but this is where we're at currently. There may be future opportunities for this. I would encourage people to use Transit Link, which is available and there is capacity to use. It's a really good option. I'm not dismissing the comment because that's something I hear a lot, and we have to figure out how to manage the overall network along with the possibility of micro and other areas beyond those we've identified. The other is on McKnight. The 350 is the route that operated there, and that was 3 trips morning and afternoon to downtown St. Paul. So the question is where do people want to go? Right now, the 323 operates through London Lane, Lower Afton, and across over to Woodbury, which has been really great for that area around McKnight and Lower Afton and London Lane. So that's really good. For the commuters who have cars, there's Lower Afton and 61. But what you're talking about is a new market that I think is worth us taking a look at and seeing, is there a way to serve this differently than what we have in the past? So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I think on one of the slides, you sort of captured what she was getting to. It showed how many the amount of users that you have are currently using. So it showed about 250,000 people were people of color or low-income families out of, I think, 300,000 that are really using the services, the main service. So it seems like the majority are the ones that we really need to try to figure out how to cater to, because those are the ones that are utilizing it the most right now.
Right, and the question for us is to really drill down and say, how does the 323 serve this market and how much further south do we go on McKnight? So that's really the question, how do we fit those pieces together? Because it's, like you said, it's right at the end of McKnight of where we currently serve, and so it's a challenge right now, but it's definitely worth us looking at.
And maybe even easier routes that would get families to some of these main services that are in the cities. You know, I don't know if there's other WIC offices where they're at, but maybe having some type of direct routes or more convenient routes that would just get them to these main services that our cities are offering. Just a thought.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Taylor?
I guess I have two kind of questions, comments. One would be, I know I'm very excited about the 354. So I really think that could be a really good route, and not only just for the metro, the region, but also for Newport. And I'm a little bit different than kind of going east-west here, whereas most of the people are going to be focused on north-south. But it's one thing I was surprised at is the absence of any weekend service. And I'm just wondering, why? And I mean, 'cause especially I think that would be, as we get more decentralized in our use, and a lot of people would be using it for retail or other opportunities, I was wondering why no weekend service on that route?
It's certainly something we consider, excuse me.
Yep,
Madam
go ahead.
Chair, Councilmember. It's certainly something we can consider. And we're adding a lot of weekend service in other areas too. But because this is a brand new market, the question is, which would do better overall? And maybe that's something we can look at adding in and thinking about, does that fit or not? Because this is a brand new market, and it's one we've never served before. And how does what do we expect, and how long do we give it, and how can we adjust things to make it successful?
Yeah, and I don't want to, it's just, even if there was like a Saturday, maybe, I mean, it's gonna be hard. I think I'm optimistic about this route, but it's like, I know that you want to prove it too, and maybe maybe it has to get proven a little bit on the weekdays.
And people fly on the weekends, right?
Yeah, and it's just, and also, it's just, I mean, it's like, we have our transit station there in Newport, and like, we're opening our second low-income housing apartment here next month, or in November. It's like, we don't have any place to shop in town for groceries or anything else like that. So you can hop up to Target real easy. And so that will be, it doesn't solve all our problems, but it's a big first step. But if you can't do that on a weekend, it limits, and a lot of people work in retail and other things. So it was something to think about. The other thing I was just, hadn't really thought about until coming here today is kind of that micro center or micro transit thing. It's not in Newport, but it obviously had the Woodbury one. And I'm just, like your thoughts, as we're in the early stages of planning that big development north of Bailey, that in Maplewood, Newport, and Woodbury, about 300 acres, and it just, what should we be, what's your advice to us as we get further into that planning process to how should transit serve that? It's currently adjacent to that micro zone. Would that likely be something that would get expanded into, should we be thinking about that?
Well,
far
we're
as
certainly
layout?
going to be working with our partners on what those boundaries are. The key to those microzones is we are designating 5 vehicles operating at one time, and as long as we can maintain that service promise of we can get there in 20 minutes, so there's a little bit of a space-time continuum on what that boundary is. Could there be more vehicles? I suppose there could be more vehicles, and then how does that all fit together? So it's one of the things that we'll be measuring. Some of our presentations, we call it a pilot, but it's to say, those boundaries can change. We're going to learn once we implement them. We have the best ideas working with Washington County and Woodbury and Oakdale on where those things should go, but we're going to learn a lot more when you actually operate it and figure out where there might be other opportunities.
Yeah, 'cause the difficulty is like right now, they've brought a concept plan to Newport. It's the first piece of it, but we haven't seen a vision for the whole. And so I'm kind of concerned about, trying to keep it a holistic idea, and, that's, so there's a lot. It'll be evolving in the months ahead. That's kind of my other areas. So.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes, so I appreciate just kind of also the questions around this in-service hour changes. I think that was one of the things initially that I had thought about, along with the council member, about the fact that most people that I know that have a full-time job, we work on the weekends, or we travel, or we fly on the weekends. So the time we would need to have a connection to the airport would be on the weekends, and not as much during the week as per se. But I'm just wondering, are there going to be certain levels, and maybe it's just not on here as you're planning, but certain checkpoints or reporting times where you're monitoring traffic, just of some of the newer transit spaces and transit lines?
Madam Chair, Councilmember, yes, indeed, we'll be monitoring all the things that we implement certainly on an annual basis, but probably a lot more closely on those newer services that we haven't tried before to see how they're doing, and do we need to adjust anything? Do we need to promote it? Those kinds of things. So we'll be watching them close.
Awesome. I think those findings will be really important to know, and to kind of receive to this body as well, just like hearing what that looks like as you move along with the process over the next few years. The one question I had as well was related to when you were going through the overall like corridor design and space, how are you maneuvering, I guess, just the different municipality connections and relationships and such to make sure that there is continued buy-in over time?
Are you speaking of once we implement something and keeping appraised of how it's performing, or?
Yeah, just in overall, like, being that this goes through several different areas, I'm just wondering, like, what Metro Transit's plan is for just continuing to monitor, obviously beyond, this is a multi-municipal commission, but just in general, just thinking about how the strategy is to continue to maintain, like, that partnership and relationship with multiple cities as more of this comes to light, as we get into, I do think about the Purple Line is very close to me in my mind as an East Side City Council member, and just what we're seeing as far as like some of the different municipalities and their viewpoints. And I'm just wondering, do you envision some of that work here? Are you guys planning ahead for that to just, answer the questions for people that they have, maybe just keeping people on board? Does that make sense?
Yeah, Madam Chair, Council Member, yes, especially for some of these newer corridors, and we're happy to keep this body engaged in each one of the cities along the way to say, here's what we're planning on, here's how it's performing. And we'll need to work with each one of the cities to some degree on where the route goes, what streets is it on, so we can give good notification and plan where the bus stops are, but certainly reporting back on here's how it's performing. What do we do? It's going great, or we have a different idea, wow, we tried this, we think going on this street's better, different destination, different time of day, so those are the kinds of things that we'd want to have contact with the locals on.
And then I guess this isn't really a question, but it's more of a follow-up comment. I appreciate the different levels of engagement and kind of the engagement strategies and plans. I would just continue to note the importance of making sure that our surveys are translated and some of the common languages that are, especially along the southwestern part of my ward, it's Somali, it's Hmong, it's Karen, and I think that as we continue to think about how we're engaging folks who maybe utilize transit, just looking at your statistics, looking at who is riding, I think that maneuvering the language barrier is super important, and finding ways for others to access or to provide feedback in written form if possible, or developing some sort of engagement strategy specifically targeted at Hmong TV, for example, or other Somali TV as well, just some of the outlets that are trusted partners in their respective communities, and some of their faith-based community organizations as well might be really helpful and instrumental in gaining their feedback.
Yeah. Madam Chair, Councilmember, and for everyone, yes, we do want to do that, and this won't be a one and done, we're done, because we'll continue to develop and implement these projects, these routes, these services, and we'll want feedback. So over the course of I said 2023, where we really had an intense effort to do just that, we'll continue to get feedback from our local community partners as well, and look for your assistance when we need it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, I think it's important to have the multilingual in the documents and materials as well. I also think we need to make sure we're communicating with our city partners, because they're going to get a lot of questions. And so with these changes, because I think a lot of people wonder why we don't have transit, especially in these suburban cities, these first tier, second tier, third tier cities. Now that we're having it, they're not going to probably call me or Met Council. They're gonna call these council members. So we're gonna have to make sure the city has that information. A couple things. One, I want to just give a shout out to East Metro Strong, because Will did such a wonderful job, and Andrea and Lissa from our staff did a wonderful job really doing this revisioning, getting the stakeholder engagement, and really coming at this from a different perspective, and then also like I think getting our feedback and then having conversations too with Met Council, and I want to give a shout out to Chair Zelli. Folks in this room know I don't always compliment the Met Council. I'm going to just lay that out there, and I think Mr. Harrington's jaw just dropped. But I've had numerous conversations about needing to rethink how, especially the Newport Transit Station, when it reopens, how that is done, how we're connecting everybody in the East Metro, but also how we're connecting to the Gold Line. And this, I think, does a great job. So I would say I couldn't be more excited about the 354 or 354. Yeah, that is going to go from Woodbury to the Newport Transit Center, stopping in South St. Paul, going on out to the airport. My comments will be, it's not going to be a shock, that I think that line in particular needs to start shortly thereafter the Gold Line launches. I think because it will help with ridership, it will help connect the second largest city in Washington County in the East Metro, which is Cottage Grove, to the Newport Station to Woodbury. So I think that is a big deal. And also, there needs to be a stop at the Mall of America, not just for shopping, but there's a lot of jobs. And I also think it'll help make the argument for weekend service on that line, because as we know, that mall thrives and is open on the weekends. And so I think it's just as a justification. I would like to see it more than an every hour as well, but I know I'm probably pushing my luck. The other thing I would like to say is, I'm hoping that Great River Rail may weigh in on this. And so there's a couple of us that are on that commission. I'm hoping that we have time to ask them to weigh in on that. And then Met Council is going to be coming to a Washington County Board workshop and talking about this, so they'll probably hear these exact same comments. And then I think the other thing I just want to say is, coming from a Washington County perspective, I mean, it is all hands on deck with transit and transportation. We're doing the Transportation Alliance fly-in. We have a lot of staff dedicated for planning, for the use of our transportation dollars. We have, administrators and deputy administrators making sure they're coming along with us to make, I mean, this is a very top priority, to understand we're trying to get federal dollars, state dollars, any grants, because we're a growing county and the East Metro is thriving, and we need to make sure that we're connecting it so that we have the workforce development, that we're doing this in a sustainable way, that we're accessing affordable housing, and that we're just bringing people to jobs and jobs to people. And I mean, we're going to do this right. So I'm very excited about this. And it's just all hands on deck from Washington County's perspective. And I just want folks to know that. And I appreciate the work of this commission, very much so. I think this has come real fast, and I'm really glad that we're at this point right now, and appreciate the Met Council, Metro Transit listening. And we're gonna keep pushing, and we're gonna keep bringing the feedback. I do hope that once this is approved next year, that you do come back with the changes that were made because of the public comment. And then we can go from there, and just staying in touch and communication. Communication is not your guys' strong point, not gonna lie. So we just need to make sure that that stays strong going forward because of what the council member said. But because this is going to be a big change for us. And so we just appreciate that, and what we can do to help the Gold Line with ridership and be successful. That's a big goal. And I think Red Rock can help Gold Line and vice versa. So any final council member?
Madam Chair, if I could just briefly, I serve on the Transportation Committee, so if at any point between now and January you'd like me to come out and listen again, I will.
Okay.
So don't ever hesitate. The other point I wanted to make is, in addition to being inclusive with regard to language in our communications, we're also very conscious that a lot of our riders are people who either have disabilities.
Yes.
Or who, like me, are aging and aging quickly. And we're making special efforts to reach out to those riders as well. So we're doing our very, very best to be as inclusive as possible.
Sounds good. Any further comments? Council member.
Sorry, I appreciate all the comments and Councilmember, thank you for your contributions too, and that, and especially as it relates to that inclusivity around making sure that our, or you said aging, but I'm going to say our all of our communities can actually access it. And I've heard that comment a few times from some of my constituents as well, just of wanting to make sure that they're able, what may seem like a walk to some is sometimes a challenge. And that also goes with like bus shelters and lighting and I think in places, especially like where maybe there is a lot of traffic, but it might be really helpful to make sure that it's adequately lit, that there, we have a bus shelter plan that for the city of St. Paul that I've been seeing come in, and I actually just inquired about that today to get some updates on it. But I think that as this rolls out, it'll be also really good to know, like, kind of just like some of the safety planning and things in advance that are steps that are being taken to ensure that, in places that haven't seen transit, maybe they haven't seen necessarily like with the Gold Line construction, there are places that have seen a lot of people catching buses, but maybe now there needs to be an extra stoplight or street light. Now there needs to be, city communities need to be thinking about a crosswalk that's not there anymore, but now there's a stop going there. So if you see opportunities for that too, as this goes forward for where we should be, some of the municipalities should be partnering in sense of preparing for it, it'd be really good to know that at the front end, just because we could be proactive about it potentially if we know that there's now along some of these newer routes, there are opportunities for that stop sign that we've always wanted, or that pedestrian crosswalk that we didn't think at the time was a high priority, but now that should be, or even just communicating with you all and the state about potential bus shelters and extra lighting and warming spaces and things like that, that we could potentially complement with this new transportation options, just to continue to make it an enjoyable experience all around.
That would be much appreciated. Thank you.
And how we can help with promoting any hiring, because I know the drivers, as you mentioned, you're going to need to hire even more. So however we can do to help promote that too, be more than happy. So thank you so much for being here, Adam.
Thank you.
Very much appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the 2025 Red Rock Corridor Commission Work Plan and Budget. And Andrea will kick us off with that. Let us know.
Yes, thank you, Chair Bigum. Staff has prepared a proposed budget for 2025 that is very similar to this past year's. The key work plan items for 2025 are to continue building off of our newly adopted vision, and that will include promoting and communicating about these new routes as Adam went through in his presentation, and helping to plan for the success of those. The other key work items remain unchanged from previous years, and those are to inform state and federal legislators of the need for improved transit service in the corridor, to offer guidance, monitor progress, and prepare formal comments on studies being done in the Red Rock corridor, and as always, to continue communication efforts through the use of social media and updating the commission's website. As Washington County staff and Red Rock project manager, my colleagues and I perform most of the tasks outlined in our work plan, so we are able to operate a very lean budget. That being said, there is still a little bit of flexibility baked in the budget because this commission tends to spend less than what we budget. So that being said, the total proposed budget for 2025 is $13,500. And that amount is completely and comfortably covered by fund balance. So with that, I'm happy to address any comments or questions, but staff do recommend the approval of the 2025 work plan and budget.
Any Commissioner?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I just have a question about the fund balance, about like the contributions to the fund balance, and who or what, or kind of the history around the fund balance.
Yeah, so there are two funding partners in this committee, and that's Washington and Ramsey County. It has been several years since they've needed to contribute funds because we've been operating on this lower budget. We try to give staff a heads up if we expect that we'll need that fund, those funds added for a future year. So we'll keep Ramsey County staff in the loop on that if we see that happening. But right now, we're sitting at a fund balance of, I think it was 38-some thousand, so we should be good for the next couple of years unless a major project comes up. So we'll remain flexible and keep staff looped in.
Great, thank you.
I appreciate that. I was just gonna ask for the public's sake, what was the fund balance? So thank you for saying that. I think the key items look good for, what we're looking at for 2025. Oh, good, you're putting it up on, for the budget, yeah. Personally, I think they look good for what we're thinking about for 2025. I do plan on engaging Dakota County now that we have a bus line that's going to be going into Dakota County. And I think based on what the council member from Hastings has brought up too, I think it's worth bringing them. They, just for, I know there's a lot of new members, but Dakota County used to be a member of this, and counties are the funding members, not the cities. And so, being that there wasn't going to be a stop for a while, Dakota County decided to withdraw from the commission for that. Same reason Hennepin did, years ago when they weren't going, when it wasn't going to continue to Minneapolis. So I intend on having at least a preliminary conversation in the coming year with Commissioner Slavic to see if they would be interested in coming back. So that might impact our fund balance at some point if they decide to come back in the coming years. But I think it's important to continue to have that conversation now that we're kind of really thinking that this is expanding and we've kind of had this revision. So that's the only thing I could think of as far as items, but I don't think that's has risen to the level of needing to amend any of the work plan. So, and you need approval on that. Any further, council member?
Yeah,
Yep.
just a point of, I guess, a question. And what does the current engagement look like for the federal government? And just like historically, has there been any sort of like, no.
No.
He's like, no, there hasn't been any.
No, we're like federal funding. Is that what you said?
Or just like, have they ever been invited to attend a meeting or be brought up to speed with it?
Not in the 2 years I've been back. I don't believe that they have. So we're really so small that like we're not big like the Gold Line or some of the other lines where the feds will pony up money. There used to be something called Small Starts or something like that we would have been able to qualify for, but I think they've merged that program or something, so we don't really qualify federally for things. We used to try for state funding in the cash appropriation part of the bonding bill years ago, but we haven't recently. So,
Okay.
yep.
That's good context to have. So.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion for approval of the work plan.
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That passes. Next item is the Red Rock 2025 Red Rock Corridor Commission meeting schedule. And Andrea has put that up on the screen for us to review.
Yes, Chair and Commissioners, the 2025 proposed meeting schedule is in the packet and shown on the screen here. The proposed meetings follow our typical scheduling, which is the fourth Thursday on a quarterly basis, from 4:30 to 6 p.m. here at St. Paul Park City Hall. And so the requested action is approval of the proposed meeting schedule.
So
Any-
move.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That passes. Andrea, communication update is next.
Yes. So the Red Rock Corridor Facebook page has 419 likes and a total of 422 people follow the page. As always, staff is aiming to keep that page active by posting any sort of transit-related news from across the region several times per month. So we'll definitely keep our eye out for any Metro Transit posts we can share out and help them with their engagement efforts to the best of our ability. So, I can stand for questions.
Councilmember? Yep.
Yes, thank you. Is there a goal per se to how many like you want to increase by, or is there? How do you gauge success of whether or not you have
Yeah.
more engagement on the page?
Over the last few years, we sort of see like a gradual increase. I don't know that we've ever set a goal, but if that's a priority of this commission, we can certainly draft one up for our next meeting.
That's a good idea. I like that. And I also like that maybe we should start pushing out the Metro Transit Now stuff. Like maybe a good post would be about the public comment. That might help generate some stuff. And then, as that gets closer to approval and stuff like that, we can push that. And maybe highlighting that there's a couple routes that impact Red Rock.
Right.
So, Councilmember?
One of the things I think that might be good is if anything along the way, when you put something into the Facebook page, message the commissions, or not the commissions, the cities to highlight, and then they can add that piece. They could just pick it up and put it on their Facebook page, because I think everybody along here has a Facebook page, let alone a city webpage for something,
Yeah.
So I think that might be a good idea to kind of tweak it up a little bit.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right, next item is other, and under that is commissioner reports. Does anybody have anything to report? Okay, nothing Great River Rail or anything? No?
No.
Okay, all right, Purple Line, no. I think we want to skip that one.
Yeah, we'll
Just skip that one. All right, next meeting then is January 23rd, 2025. It really seems too early to say this, but have a happy new year. What? All right, seeing no further items in front of us, we are adjourned.
Thank you.